can you actually give a summary of end times?
Yes.
And here's how. We read Revelation, and there is these names, Sardis and Philadelphia. And can you give it in the terms of New York and, like today, for a person today, with the technology we have, with what we know, how will it really be? And end times, and also what is this tribulation? What is this suffering? How will we suffer? What does this mean?
Right. My book that I wrote, What on Earth is About to Happen, covers all of that, okay? It's on 2peter3.com or drdino.com. So I'm embarrassed. It took me 40 years as a Christian to realize that what I had been taught is wrong, that the rapture can take place any minute. Jesus is coming any second, get ready for the trumpet. It's just not true. We're going to be here for the tribulation. I was guilty of confusing tribulation and wrath in the Bible. They're not the same. Tribulation is what the world does to us. Jesus said in John 16, "In the world ye shall have tribulation." They're going to hate you. They hated me, they're going to hate you. That's what he told his disciples. So tribulation is to be expected. The church has always gone through tribulation, trials, testing.
This is great tribulation.
Well, correct. It's going to get worse at the end of time, coming soon to a city near you. But wrath is different. That is what God does to the world. Tribulation is what the world does to us. Wrath is what God does to the world. We are not here when the wrath of God falls. So I was guilty of confusing tribulation and wrath. They're not the same. Once you get that straight, it's like, whoa, this makes sense. I was also guilty of confusing the day of Christ, mentioned 7 times in the Bible, with the day of the Lord, mentioned 200 times in the Bible. The day of Christ is the rapture. We're caught up out of here. Jesus' disciples asked him in Matthew 24 and Mark 13 and Luke 21, they said, "Lord, when are you coming? And what's the sign?" And he tells them in the next 20 verses, okay? And then he says in Matthew 24:29, after the tribulation, the sun and the moon go dark. There's the sign. Everybody's going to notice that. Okay, sun and the moon go dark. And there's an earthquake. Then the angel blows the trumpet and calls up his children. And in Acts 2 and in Joel chapter 2 and 3, it says, the sun and the moon go dark before the great and notable day of the Lord. Well, it's like putting 2 and 2 together. You have a time of tribulation, the sun and the moon go dark, and the day of the Lord starts. So as it began to finally gel in my mind, I said, wow, I have been taught something that's just not true. We're going to be here for the tribulation. So during my prison stay, when they moved me 32 times, I wrote the book for my dissertation for another doctor's degree. I got 4 of them. I said, we've been lied to. The church has always taught we're going to be here for the tribulation until 1830, when a 15-year-old Scottish girl had a dream about the pre-trib rapture, and it spread like wildfire from there, and I swallowed it. But it's not true. So prison got me to rethink my theology on end times. And so there's a time of tribulation, then the sun and the moon go dark, we're raptured out, then the wrath of God falls for almost 3 years. When I do my YouTube channel, Kent Hovin Official, right behind me is my chart. It's out there in the office, In my chart, we sell the charts for like $35.
This is the timeline.
This is my timeline. That's the events.
But what's going to happen? Define tribulation in Pensacola, in New York.
What's going to happen soon?
Yes.
There's going to come a treaty that allows Israel to rebuild their temple. That's mentioned in Daniel 9, verse 24. They're going to make a treaty, verse 24 to 27. Once they make a treaty that says, yes, you can rebuild your temple, you can start your clock. 7 years later, the Lord comes back. Until that happens, we don't know when that's going to happen. There's a 37-acre platform in Jerusalem where the Mosque of Omar is built, that Muslim mosque, okay? They built the mosque in the 500s and 600s thinking, we're building this on the spot where the temple was. We're going to stop the Jews from ever building their temple. They've now discovered they built it about 100 yards too far south. The whole area north of there is wide open, and that's where the temple was, probably where the Garden of Eden was, we don't know. Probably where Abraham offered Isaac. That's a real sacred spot. That north 15 acres or so is what the Muslims are going to sell to the Jews, probably for $400 zillion or whatever, I don't know. And the Jews are going to build their temple. But as soon as they make that treaty, that starts what's called the 70th week of Daniel. And that's all in my book in Appendix 3 about the 70th week of Daniel. So then 7 years later, in the middle of the 7 years, which would be 3.5, the Bible says the Antichrist breaks the treaty. The Jews are going to build their temple. He's going to come in and set up an abomination of desolation, it's called. I don't know what that means. Set up a statue. Jews have been told don't make any graven images, you know, the Ten Commandments.
So he will realize what he's done, that he set things in motion?
The Muslims
or
are
what
going,
do you mean?
the Muslims are going to think he's the Messiah.
Who is?
The guy who breaks the tree, the Antichrist.
Okay.
They have already been psychologically prepared to accept who is really the Antichrist as the Messiah, the Savior of the world, the Dajjal, they call him, D-A-J-J-A-L. They're going to think, wow, this is the good guy, when actually he's the bad guy. So all that is on my book, What on Earth is About to Happen. So at the end of that 7 years, the last half of that 7-year period is called the time of great tribulation. If you read Matthew 24, Jesus' disciples said, Lord, when are you coming and what's the sign? And he tells them, well, it's going to get bad. Many are going to fall away. Iniquity is going to abound. You're going to quit people. Husbands and wives are going to fight. Sons and daughters. And everybody's going to family fighting. Christians are going to be persecuted. And then the Antichrist breaks the treaty. That's in Matthew 24, about verse 15 or 19. And then it talks about the time of great tribulation. And then verse 29 says, that's when the sun and the moon go dark. After the tribulation, the sun and the moon go dark, and the angels blow the trumpet, and the Christians are caught up, if any are left alive. In Luke 18:8, Jesus said, when the Son of Man cometh, shall he find faith on the earth? I don't think there's going to be many left alive serving the Lord. What piqued my interest in this was reading the book of Daniel, chapter 7. While I was in prison, I was reading that. I said, whoa, this doesn't make sense. And I began so I got an old Bible and cut the pages and cut it into columns and taped the verses side by side and started drawing lines, trying to connect it. And that's now on the back of my timeline that I use. So,
how can I put it? Your view on last days. Can you you keep referring to Bible, to where you got it, and so on. Can you give like maybe a minute version that would prompt the person to listen or to read the book, but still, like, out of this, the stuff that's gonna happen, and nowadays all I understood is there is a place in Israel. No, I mean, for in today's terms,
right.
What I understood is there is a place in Israel that's going to be purchased. That place will start the 7 years. Then maybe Antichrist will realize what he's done. In half of it, in the middle of it, he'll break the treaty. He'll start persecuting. But what does it mean for us? What does this
in America or
in the world?
I
mean, mostly for us, obviously, but in the world.
The vision in Daniel chapter 2 of the image with the head of gold, the chest of silver, that all takes place in Babylon. That was God giving Nebuchadnezzar the dream of the future of his country, which today is Iraq. So that Mideast region is what the Bible prophecies deal with. Okay, there have always been kingdoms around the world, the Aztec Empire, the Inca Empire. Okay, the Bible doesn't deal with that. It deals with that region. So even the book of Daniel and Revelation, the prophecies deal primarily with that region. Now, will it affect America? Probably greatly. It says the Antichrist is going to cause everyone to receive a mark in their hand or in their forehead, and you cannot buy or sell without that mark. Possibly an implantable microchip.
It's very inconvenient to come to the store and you scan your forehead.
Not if it's in your hand, or they got a scanner up there.
What's the point of this or this?
Well, do you have a credit card now? You can walk up and scan your credit card.
But it's still there.
I know. Do you have Easy Pass on your car? You drive under the bridge, and how does it know?
But why forehead then?
That's what it says. Why? That's going. I don't know why. What if somebody doesn't have any arms? Where are you going to put it? Where would you put it? Okay.
I suppose.
If it's a little microchip and it's injected under the skin, it doesn't matter. It's you know, they do this with animals for the last 20 years. You know, go to the veterinarian, put a chip in your dog. If you lose your dog, somebody scans it. Oh, this belongs to him. You know. So the technology is here, and I don't know that that's it, but I suspect it is that or something like that, some kind of implantable chip. And it only says without this you cannot buy or sell. What if they stopped? What if all stores stopped taking cash?
It's going to. You can see it.
Okay. What if all stores stopped taking credit cards because it's too easy to steal a credit card? They said no microchip, no buy.
Should we buy land and start farming?
I don't know. At the end of my book, I have 20 pages of what does the Bible say? What should we do? What do we do? In any time there's been a financial collapse, the farmers are the least affected.
Yeah.
They've got their own cow for milk and their own, you know.
What should we do? 2 sentences. What should we do?
2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, I will hear from heaven, forgive their sin, and heal their land. we should stay as close to God as you possibly can and let Him guide you. The answer to that question is going to be different for each person.
Very likely, yes.
God wants me to go preach. Jeremiah was told, hey, your country's going into captivity. You're going to be captured. Go tell the king to surrender. The people hated him for saying that. You're weakening our military. You're saying we should not fight. We'll go fight these heathen. Jeremiah said, God told me to tell you to surrender or you're going to die. They refused to surrender and they died.
You make one claim that in 2028, or at least to my knowledge, that in 2028 you think around that time or in that year Jesus will come. Where does that come from?
Someone asked me while I was writing my book from prison, I was publishing sections of it on different websites. I would mail it out and somebody would publish it. And someone said to me, Kent, when do you think the Lord's coming? So that 10-page answer is in my book. I said, obviously, I don't know. But if I had to guess, I would guess 2028.
Why?
Well, because Jesus was probably crucified in the year 28. We know his birth was not the year 0. We know he was born BC, probably 6 BC. We know he was about 33 when he was crucified. Based on the story in the book of John, it talks about the Passover 3 different times. So he was 30 years of age when he began his ministry. The Bible tells us that. He ministered for 3 years based on the number of Passovers he attended from John. And so everybody agrees he was about 33 or 33 and a half when he was crucified. Okay? Which means since he was born in about 6 BC,
that makes it 2020.
That would make it 28. Why do we start our calendar? This is 2016. Why? Well, because our calendar is based on the birth of Christ. Okay, why the birth? Why not the resurrection? If we had started our calendar on the resurrection,
it would be 0.
Then 2028 would be the year 2000. That's my only reason.
Are you afraid that this might start one of those things that happened with, this is the day the whole hoax started?
I tried to make it real clear. I don't know. This is a guess.
There's a website that says 2028 is the year. It's like 2028end.com or something.
Really?
And
I don't know
in the
about
very middle, it's got your video.
Oh, well, I don't think I would change it.
So that's not your intention.
No. I don't know when the Lord's coming, but I suspect that's still my suspicion. I think probably the creation of the world was not 4000 BC, but 28 years less than that.
Do you know
what
month and date?
No, I don't know. I don't know
so
those
we
things.
could add 2000.
Yeah, it'd be nice. But God seems to be working on a big 6,000-year calendar and then a 1,000-year millennium. He just does that kind of thing. King David became king in about 1000 BC. I think if we knew the exact date, it would also fit on a big calendar that God was the one. Abraham offered Isaac his son. When? About 2,000 years before Christ. Well, if we knew all the details, I bet it was also on a 28. I mean, just a guess.
It's good that Bible is vague on some things.
Probably so, or we would have an exact date. Now, I do believe that once they make a treaty, then we can know when the Lord's coming. Then you've got 7 years.
But again, exact 7 years, or
well, that goes back to the question of, do you go on a 360-day calendar?
Okay, but you can do either that or that. So it's 6 days per year error.
Yeah,
and you still can calculate a day.
I don't think you can know. But most of the things that so far have happened on feast days. God gave Moses 7 feasts for the children of Israel to keep. 3 in the spring, 1 in the summer, 3 in the fall. These 7 feasts seem to be a fulfillment of a bigger prophecy, like the Passover. What's that about? Well, that was the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. You offer the lamb. And so there are people who make that their entire ministry, and I love that kind of stuff. It's not big in my ministry, but I'm glad people do that. So I have said I think the Lord's going to come in 2028 during one of the fall feasts. We'll see. If not, I'm going to keep serving God anyway.
So this is not, just to be clear, this is not your beliefs. This is your
best guess.
Curiosities.
Best guess. Curiosity, right.
Yeah, that's okay. So this is not, nobody should take it, and it's bad in any case to take it as I don't even know, as truth or whatever. It's
Miller,
best to think it as curiosity.
A guy named Miller back in 1840 said the Lord's coming in 1841, and everybody sold their possessions and went and stood on the hill, and he didn't come. He said, 1842. So they did it again, sold everything and stood on the hill, and he didn't come.
What did they sell again?
Whatever they had earned in the last year. Okay, they had to go buy stuff again, work hard. So that Millerite group morphed into what became the Seventh-day Adventist group today. And so, no, I do not. I'm not telling everybody go sell your stuff and go stand on a hill. I don't know when he's coming. We might have 1,000 more years. But people ask me, what's your guess? That's my guess. Still is.
Okay.